Ah, you're gonna be fine. We just gotta stop the bleeding.
I'm bleeding? Ah!
2.5 Men. Just hearing the name takes you right back to the 2000s, a classic show with the worst ending ever. Oh, I get it. The minute people bring up this show, that ridiculous ending is the first thing that comes to mind. But today, let's set that aside for a second and look back at how insanely the cast's lives swerved after they walked away from this show. Because honestly, some of these names are even more controversial than that ending. There was a sitcom king who practically set his own career on fire with addiction. There was a sitcom millionaire kid who called the very show that made him famous filth. And there was one guy brought in to save the show who later got tangled up in a shocking rape case. Take a look at their lives after leaving this show and you'll see that ridiculous ending really was not even the half of it. And do not miss a single second because I buried a whole lot of insane facts all through this video. You ready? Number 1, Charlie Sheen as Charlie Harper. This is the most famous name from 2.5 Men and also one of the most controversial, right up there with the ending itself. Born in 1965, Charlie Sheen came into this series in 2003 when he was 38, after Spin City and after his Golden Globe win in 2002. To be exact, this was not some actor out chasing a lucky break. This was already a major star stepping into a role that felt almost custom-made for who he was in real life. Charlie Harper was a rich, reckless, hard-partying jingle writer, and Sheen had the audience convinced from episode 1 that nobody else could have played that part better than him. Then the show pushed him to a whole other level. The role got Sheen 4 Emmy nominations, 2 Golden Globe nominations, and made him one of the highest-paid TV actors in America. By 2008, he was making more than $800,000 per episode, and at one point, that jumped to around $1.8 million an episode. Forbes even reported that from 2010 to 2011, he made around $40 million in a single year. That is a level not many sitcom stars ever get to touch. Ever. And then he fell in a way the whole country had to watch. 3 marriages fell apart, 5 children, addiction, wild outbursts. By March of 2011, Warner Brothers terminated his contract and flat out said Sheen was engaging in dangerous, self-destructive behavior. That collapse did not happen quietly. It exploded right in the middle of the internet era with winning tiger blood, those unhinged rants, and an America that was shocked but could not look away. But the hardest hit came later. In 2015, Sheen revealed publicly that he was HIV positive and said he had been extorted for more than $10 million to keep it secret. From that point on, Charlie Sheen's story was not just about some bad boy wrecking his life anymore. It became the story of a man being eaten away from the inside by fear, shame, and his own choices. By 2025, he said he had been sober for 8 years, living more quietly, closer to family, but still having moments where he shudders in shame when he thinks about the past.
With your sobriety
Charlie
now,
Sheen
I know
is
it's such an
61.
important thing for you.
I'm coming up on 8 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
High price. Some stars fade with time. Charlie Sheen burned so bright, he nearly burned himself all the way down. Number 2, Jon Cryer as Alan Harper.
Left
This is
the
the guy who
Calypso
stayed the longest in 2.5 Men.
all 500
And
hours.
also that nobody expected would end up having the most steady life out of the whole cast. Jon Cryer was born in 1965. When the series premiered in 2003, he was 38. This year, he is 61. Before playing Alan Harper, Cryer was not sitting in the position of some rising star. After Pretty in Pink, he spent years struggling, even got tagged with the almost cruel label of show killer, and went through about 3 years with very little work. So Alan was not just a part that fit him well, it was a real career rescue. Cryer grabbed that role and turned a divorced, broke, constantly overshadowed man into the most durable soul of the whole series. That role later earned him 2 Emmy wins and a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2011.
This permutation of this guy. I mean, you know,
First marriage
he
to Sarah
had a nervous
Trigger fell
breakdown.
apart. Then in 2009, she was arrested on a felony child neglect accusation. After that, the custody battle dragged on so long that for a stretch, Cryer had custody, but still had to keep paying child support. That is not the kind of tragedy that blows up like top-shelf tabloid chaos, but it is the kind that wears a person down for a long time. Then came Charlie Sheen. When Sheen fell apart in 2011, Cryer said the thing he feared most was not the show ending, but waking up one morning and reading that Charlie had died. After that, Sheen publicly called him a turncoat traitor and troll. That fracture never really went away. By 2024, Cryer was still saying clearly that he wished Charlie well, but did not know whether he would want to work with him again. After everything, Jon Cryer did not keep going on Old Glory. He kept going on Endurance. In 2026, he returned to the off-Broadway stage after 15 years. That arc is weirdly a lot like Alan Harper himself, not the brightest guy in the room, but usually the one still standing there at the end. Number 3, Angus T. Jones as Jake Harper.
You are so cute! I know.
From 2.5 Men.
You have a girlfriend yet?
Back on that very
No,
show.
I'm a bash.
The hardest Jake Harper was the half in the title, so Angus T. Jones was never just some forgettable side character. When the series premiered in 2003, he was only 9. This year, Angus is 33. American audiences literally watched him grow up on screen from a goofy little kid into one of the familiar faces of primetime sitcoms. What makes this story worth talking about is that Angus did not leave the show because he was losing. He left when he was in a spot a whole lot of grown adults never even get close to. Guinness recognized Angus as the highest-paid child actor in television per episode in 2010 at $250,000 an episode. In other words, that kid had money, fame, a solid place, and a massive sitcom, and still decided to turn his back on it. The big turn came in 2012. In a video about faith, Angus called 2.5 Men filth, told audiences to stop watching, and even said Jake Harper was a non-existent character. That was no longer just a normal, impulsive comment. That was a child star publicly rejecting the very image that raised him in front of millions of viewers. Angus later apologized, saying he had been disrespectful to his co-workers and that he was still grateful for the opportunity the show gave him, but the crack was already way too visible. Way. A few years later, Angus looked back and admitted he had gone through a phase where his thinking got really doomsday. He said he felt relieved. Once he got to college, lived more normally, and for the first time, was not the center of everybody's attention anymore. By 2024, people described Angus as having pretty much left Hollywood, only occasionally being spotted out in public, looking very different from the old Jake Harper. He also got involved with the company Tonight and was preparing to take on a role in entertainment, but clearly chose a much more private life. Number 4, Ashton Kutcher as Walden Schmidt. This is the guy who got brought in to save 2.5 Men after Charlie Sheen's collapse, and he actually did it. When Ashton Kutcher showed up as Walden Schmidt in 2011, he was 33. This year, he is 48. His debut episode pulled nearly 28.7 million viewers, the highest in series history at that point, which was enough to prove that no matter how much people argued, they still turned on the TV to see whether this new guy could really handle that hot seat. But what makes Ashton's story worth talking about is not how he replaced Charlie Sheen. It is that in real life, Ashton was carrying a heavy load from pretty early on too. He grew up with his twin brother Michael, who had cerebral palsy and had to get a heart transplant at 13. Ashton later said that at that point he had even thought about suicide so he could donate his heart to save his brother. Ashton's personal life later was not smooth either. His marriage to Demi Moore went through a deeply painful loss with a late miscarriage, then ended in divorce. Even heavier than that, in 2019, he testified in court in the Hollywood Ripper case because Ashley Ellerin, the woman who was supposed to go on a date with him in 2001, was murdered that very night. Ashton said he panicked because he knew his fingerprints would be on her front door. This was not a scandal he caused, but it was clearly the kind of traumatic event that would haunt a name for years. Then came the biggest shift in his public image. Ashton publicly revealed that he had vasculitis, which at one point affected his hearing, vision, and balance, and he flat out said he was lucky to be alive. But in 2023, the letter he and Mila Kunis wrote asking for leniency for Danny Masterson was the hardest blow of all. After the massive backlash, both of them had to apologize, and Ashton stepped down as chairman of Thorne, the child sexual abuse prevention organization he co-founded. For someone who had built part of his image around protecting victims that left a very deep public scar. Looking back at the four most important faces of 2.5 Men, what do you think? I get it. Your feelings are probably a little mixed right now. But let me take a quick halftime break here because these people had some real-life stories that were even stranger than what happened on the show. First up is Charlie Sheen. If you think you have already heard everything there is to hear about that man, not yet. It was not until his memoir and documentary in 2025 that Charlie first publicly revealed he had once had sexual experiences with men and said that finally talking about it felt like a kind of late release. Surprised enough yet, still not all. Charlie later said that his wild tiger blood era was not just fueled by drugs and alcohol, but got pushed even further by testosterone cream, which he called in the most Charlie way possible crazy cream. Honestly, some details from Charlie Sheen's life sound harder to believe than a sitcom. Jon Cryer, on the other hand, was totally different. Before becoming Alan Harper, he had gotten really close to the spotlight of the Brat Pack stars from the 80s, but somehow always missed the door. Cryer later said there were roles he lost to Andrew McCarthy, and that is the kind of failure a person can carry around for a long time. And that is not all. He also said that when he was dating Demi Moore, he had absolutely no idea she was struggling with addiction. That is a very Hollywood detail, because sometimes even the people right there in it cannot see the storm sitting directly in front of them. And then there is Ashton Kutcher, who brought a totally different kind of crazy. He once tried following Steve Jobs' fruitarian diet to prepare for a role and wound up in the hospital with pancreas problems. Hollywood really does have some bizarre ways of making people torture themselves. Now let's move on to this show's core regulars, Berta, Evelyn, Judith, and Rose. Number 5, Conchata Ferrell as Berta. You remember
When any
Conchata
man, no
Ferrell,
matter
right?
how humble,
She
can't
was
go out
born
there
in
and soil the loins of
1943.
some hot little
When the
dancer.
series
Well,
premiered in
I don't want to
2003,
live in that.
She was 60. Berta was originally written for only 2 episodes, and the character was even imagined with an Eastern European accent. But Ferrell walked into the audition room, dropped that whole idea, and performed in her own voice, and Chuck Lorre kept her. That decision turned out so right, it is almost impossible to imagine this show without Berta. That role did not just make audiences love her, it also carried her through all 12 seasons and brought her 2 Emmy nominations for Berta after she had already received an Emmy nomination before that for L.A. Law. That matters because Conchata Ferrell was not the kind of star who got loudly promoted everywhere. She was the kind of actor who walked into a frame and the audience believed her right away and kept believing her for a long time. Her private life was much quieter than a lot of other people in this cast. She married Arnie Anderson back in 1986, had a daughter named Samantha, and lived most of her life more like a steady working actor than some loud figure all over the press. But the last years of her life were very hard. In late 2019, Ferrell got a kidney infection, had to be hospitalized, then went home bedridden and doing physical therapy. In May 2020, she was hospitalized again, went into cardiac arrest, for about 10 minutes, spent more than 4 weeks in the ICU, then was moved to a long-term care facility where she needed a ventilator and dialysis and could barely speak. Then, on October 12, 2020, Conchata Ferrell passed away at 77. What stayed behind in the end was very clear. Berta was never the central role on paper. But Conchata Ferrell turned her into an essential part of the show, and that is the kind of win that lasts longer than all the noise. Number 6, Holland Taylor as Evelyn Harper. This is the woman who never needed to be loud to make all of 2.5 Men tilt her way every time she stepped into the frame. Holland Taylor was born in 1943. When the show premiered in 2003, she was 60. This year she is 83. As Evelyn Harper, the knife-sharp and ice-cold mother of the Harper family, she earned 4 Emmy nominations. That alone tells you something. Evelyn was not just some annoying side character thrown in for fun. She was an essential part of the show's rhythm. Holland Taylor's personal life has never really been full of classic Hollywood scandals. The thing that got the public's attention the most came pretty late, actually. In 2015, at 72, she revealed that she was in love with a woman much younger than she was, later confirmed to be Sarah Paulson. Holland said this was not some late coming out story because she had always lived honestly as herself. She just had never made her private life into a public story before. For someone from her generation, the way she said it felt very direct, very self-possessed. What is even more interesting is that the period right before that relationship was actually pretty dark. Holland said that after Anne ended the loneliness she felt, along with the shock of aging at 70, pushed her into a major depression. And it was from that place that she stepped into what she called the first deeply connected relationship of her life. Later on, the fact that she and Sarah Paulson were more than 30 years apart became press material, but the two of them stayed strong and even had a very simple secret to it. They do not live in the same house. Holland Taylor never gave the audience one of those explode and collapse type stories. She gave them something completely different. A quiet life, growing older, hitting a deep emotional low, and then finding love very late in life, but finding it in a way that was still completely real. And honestly, that takes a kind of strength not everybody has. Number 7, Marin Hinkle as Judith Harper. Marin Hinkle was not the loudest person in this cast. But if you look closely, her private life has had some cracks that were very quiet and very deep. Marin was born in 1966. When 2.5 Men premiered in 2003, she was 37. This year, she is 60. As Judith Harper Allen's ex-wife and Jake's mother Marin did not need to yell or grab the frame. She just had to walk in and Allen would instantly shrivel up, and the audience would remember right away that this woman was an essential part of the Harper family mess. What is worth talking about is that Marin's personal life did not go in the direction of loud scandal. It went in a way that was way more draining. In 2020, she said publicly for the first time that she had been living with chronic pain for 5 years. Not the kind of pain that comes and goes, but the kind that stays with your body so long you have to learn how to live with it. For an actor, that is the kind of challenge that is really quiet but truly wears you down. Then there is the family side. Marin married Randall Summer back in 1997, kept her private life pretty closed off for years. But in 2023, she filed for divorce after 25 years of marriage. By 2024, the two of them had reached a settlement and made it clear that they still respected each other, were still friends, and were still parents to their son. The way they ended that marriage was pretty civilized, but honestly, a breakup after that many years is never easy to get through. What I really admire about Marin Hinkle is that she did not disappear after 2.5 Men. She kept going, and then had another really beautiful stretch with The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, earning 2 Emmy nominations in 2019 and 2020. That is seriously impressive. Number 8, Melanie Lynskey as Rose. To be fair, Melanie Lynskey played that role so well that a lot of people still remember her first and foremost as the neighbor who clung to Charlie Harper more stubbornly than his own shadow. Melanie was born in 1977. When 2.5 Men premiered in 2003, she was 26. This year, she is 49. At first, Rose only showed up as a small role in the first episode, but then the character stuck around and became a regular in the first 2 seasons and stayed attached to the series for a long time after that. What matters here is that Melanie was smart enough not to let herself get trapped in that role. She made the choice herself to step away from the main cast in 2005 because she was worried about being boxed in forever as the weird next-door girl. That choice was the right one, but the price Hollywood made her pay was not light. Melanie later said she had struggled with an eating disorder since she was just 12, and even while filming Coyote Ugly, people were still scrutinizing her body to the point that it was like I was already starving myself and they were still criticizing me. She said she was as thin as she could possibly be, and people were still pushing her to get even smaller. Melanie's personal life was not smooth either. She married Jimmy Simpson in 2007, then divorced in 2014. After that, she found a calmer rhythm with Jason Ritter, had a daughter in 2018, and married in 2020. But the thing that sticks with me the most is the way she talked about her body after a miscarriage. Melanie admitted that the experience changed the way she saw herself and made her less cruel toward herself. That is the kind of change that is not loud, but runs very deep. Now, when you look back, Melanie Lynskey did not just escape Rose's shadow. She became one of the most respected faces on American television right now with Yellow Jackets and The Last of Us. A lot of people leave a sitcom trying to find themselves again. Melanie walked away and eventually found both her career and her peace later than expected, but in a way that felt more real. There is something I have always found really interesting about 2.5 Men. A lot of times, the people standing just a little off-center are the ones who make the whole scene come alive. And in real life, this group has a few stories that really stick with you once you hear them. Take Berta, for example. Can you believe that character was originally written for exactly 2 episodes? The original idea for her was even completely different from the version we ended up knowing later. But then Conchata Ferrell walked in, used her own natural voice, and that was it. Berta stayed. Some actors do not need to ask for more screen time. They just show up once and the whole team immediately gets it. This person has to stay. But Conchata Ferrell's story was not just laughter. The last years of her life were much heavier than a lot of people realized. In late 2019, she got a kidney infection. By 2020, things had gotten so bad that her heart stopped for about 10 minutes. She had to stay in the ICU for more than 4 weeks, and she needed both a ventilator and dialysis. Audiences remember Berta as a woman tough as iron, but in real life, Conchata went through a brutally hard final stretch. Then there is Holland Taylor, and her story feels very now. She and Sarah Paulson really did reconnect through social media. Sounds simple, but from there it turned into a relationship that has lasted for years. And the nice part is, while people keep obsessing over the age gap, Holland says the secret is actually not complicated at all. They work because they love the same things, from movies and theater to the way they look at people. Hearing that really makes you realize that sometimes what keeps a relationship alive is still the oldest thing in the world: genuine connection. Then we get to Melanie Lynskey. This is exactly the kind of thing only Hollywood could come up with. She and Jason Ritter were dating in real life, but on screen they played brother and sister. All right, now, let's move on to the last group, Amber Tamblyn and Courtney Thorne-Smith. Number 9, Amber Tamblyn as Jenny Harper. Amber Tamblyn came into 2.5 Men pretty late, but she definitely did not come in as some minor face. In 2013, when she took the role of Jenny Harper, she was 30. This year, she is 43. Before that, Amber had already made a name for herself with General Hospital, Joan of Arcadia, and a stretch of really respected independent film work. So Jenny Harper was not some career rescue. It felt more like a strange turn, Charlie Harper's out of wedlock daughter showing up after the Charlie Sheen era, then quickly getting promoted to a regular face in season 11. But if you really look closely, the most important thing about Amber Tamblyn was never just Jenny. It was the way her personal life slowly became a very public part of her image. In 2016, Amber said she had once been sexually assaulted by an ex-boyfriend, and later said that speaking up about it brought her closer to her mother. In 2017, she drew more attention when she publicly confronted James Woods after sharing a story from when she was just 16, and Woods denied it. Amber is also the kind of person who brings her personal experiences into public life. She became known as a prominent voice in Time's Up, and #MeToo wrote the novel Any Man, about a female serial rapist, and then in 2021, she even admitted that financial success at a young age had distorted her relationship with family to the point where she sometimes felt like she was everybody's ATM. On top of that, she has maintained her marriage with David Cross, whom she met back in 2007 and had a daughter with in 2017. Number 10, Courtney Thorne-Smith as Lyndsey McElroy. Closing out this list is Courtney Thorne-Smith, who reminds you of something very Hollywood sometimes. What wears a person down is not scandal. It is the pressure to always look perfect. Courtney joined 2.5 Men as Lyndsey McElroy in season 7, then stayed with the show all the way through season 12. According to widely used biography sources, she was born in 1967. When she took this role in 2010, she was about 43. This year, she is 59 by the count on my channel. Before Lyndsey, Courtney was already a familiar face on American television with Melrose Place ally McBeal, and according to Jim, so she came into this sitcom as someone who had already been through plenty of ups and downs on the small screen. The most important thing about Courtney actually sits outside 2.5 Men. In 2000, she revealed publicly that she had developed an eating disorder after all the body pressure she faced during Ally McBeal. She said herself that she was eating too little, exercising too hard, and pushing her body so far that she damaged her immune system. At one point, just because of a sensitive scene, she lived almost entirely on fruit for a whole week to force her body to get smaller. Her private life was not smooth either. Her first marriage to geneticist Andrew Conrad lasted only from 2000 to 2001. Her second marriage to Roger Fishman lasted much longer, included a son, and went on for 18 years. But by 2025, Courtney still filed for divorce and said the two of them had actually been separated since 2021. If you are still with me here, first off, congratulations, you just made it through the heaviest part of the list. Now let's close this out with a few last stories that are just strange enough, just fun enough, and exactly the kind of thing only Hollywood could come up with. First up is Amber Tamblyn. She is not the type to go through something and stay quiet about it. In 2017, Amber publicly shared a memory from when she was 16, saying James Woods had once tried to invite her and her friend to Las Vegas. Woods denied it, and Amber did not back down at all. But Amber is not just about those confrontations. Her love story with David Cross started in a very everyday kind of way. The two of them met on a flight in 2007, switched seats, so they could sit next to each other and talk the whole way. And in classic Amber Tamblyn style, even her wedding was not like anybody else's. She wore a mustard yellow lace dress and went barefoot. Courtney Thorne-Smith, meanwhile, brings a very American TV kind of story. After breaking up with Andrew Shue in real life, she still had to film kissing scenes with him on Melrose Place, so Courtney came up with a no-tongue rule. It sounds funny and a little bitter at the same time, but anybody who has worked in the business would probably get that it was a pretty smart way to protect herself. And here comes the last detail I love the most. Courtney also wrote a book called Outside In about the dark side of television, and then had to keep explaining that it was not an autobiography. The most ironic thing about 2.5 Men is this: a sitcom that got baked so deeply into the memory of an entire generation ended with the finale so ridiculous that a whole lot of fans still see it as one of the worst sitcom endings ever. Maybe that is exactly why, for all these years, not many people have really wanted to look back at this show all the way through. But today, this is no longer just about looking at how the cast aged or which direction their lives turned. This is also a chance for the people who once loved 2.5 Men, or at least loved it before that ending wrecked everything, to sit down together, remember that era, and say out loud what this show actually left in their hearts. So now I want to ask you one very simple question. Do you want me to make another video about 20 insane facts about 2.5 Men? If you do, let me know in the comments. And if you like this kind of digging back into old shows in a way that is blunt, nostalgic, and not sugar-coated, then make sure you subscribe to the channel